The strange knock at night. Ethan Cole lived alone in a small wooden house at the edge of town. The street outside was dark and empty, with only the sound of the wind moving through the trees. He liked it that way, quiet and far from trouble. It was past midnight when he sat in his living room, sipping coffee and reading an old book. Then he heard it. A soft knock at the door. It was not loud, but it was urgent. 3 short knocks. Pause. Then 2 more. He frowned, wondering who could be visiting at this hour. Ethan stood up and walked slowly to the door. The knock came again, faster now, as if whoever was outside was desperate. He unlocked the door and opened it just a little. The cold night air rushed in. Standing there was a woman, at least. She looked like a woman. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, silver and smooth. Her hair was long and black, moving gently even though there was no wind. Her eyes glowed faintly. "Like small stars, please." "Help me," she said in broken English, her voice shaking. "They are coming." "Please." Before Ethan could speak, a low, deep sound rumbled from somewhere far away in the sky. It was not thunder. It was something heavier, more mechanical. The woman stepped closer, as if she feared the shadows behind her. Ethan's first thought was that this was some kind of prank, but the fear in her eyes was real. She looked exhausted, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the door. Her clothes were torn in several places, and strange glowing marks ran across her arms like living tattoos. "Who's coming?" Ethan asked, keeping his voice low. She shook her head quickly. "No time." "Please, hide me." She glanced over her shoulder. Ethan followed her gaze but saw nothing, just the empty street and dark trees. Yet the air felt different, heavy, as if the night itself was watching them. For a moment, Ethan considered closing the door. He didn't know this woman, and whatever trouble she had, it sounded dangerous. But something about her voice, the way it cracked, when she said, "Please," made him pause. Then the rumble in the sky grew louder. A faint red light moved across the clouds. It wasn't an airplane. It was moving too fast, too smoothly. The woman's breathing quickened. "They tracked me. Even through walls," she whispered. Her silver eyes searched his face, begging for an answer. Ethan's heart pounded. If he let her in, he could be pulling trouble straight into his home. If he didn't, something told him she would not survive the night. Another low sound rolled through the air. This time it was closer. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to make a choice. Finally he stepped back and opened the door wider. "Get inside," he said. She slipped in quickly. Her movements smooth but tense. Ethan shut the door behind her, locking it. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp. The woman stood near the wall, her hands pressed together. Her gaze moved to every corner of the room, as if checking for danger. "My name is Ethan," he said carefully. "You are?" She hesitated, then answered, "Lyra." Her voice was soft, but her accent made every word sound strange. She stayed standing, as though afraid to relax. Ethan noticed she was barefoot, her feet leaving faint, glowing prints on the wooden floor. That faded after a few seconds. Outside, a new sound filled the night. A sharp, high-pitched hum. It made the window glass vibrate. Lyra's head snapped toward the sound. "They are close," she whispered. Ethan moved to the window and pulled the curtain just enough to look outside. A dark shape floated above the street. No larger than a car. It had no wings, no wheels. Just smooth black metal with red lights moving across its surface. It was scanning, searching. Ethan's stomach tightened. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't human. The hum grew louder, and the red lights swept toward his house. Lyra stepped back, her body tense. Ethan looked at her, then at the strange object. "Outside. What do they want with you?" he asked. Lyra only shook her head. "Later." "Please, not now." The lights passed over the house and moved on. The hum faded slowly into the distance, but Ethan knew it was not gone for good. Lyra closed her eyes, breathing deeply. "They will return," she said. "They never stop." Ethan had 100 questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why did she look human, but not human at all? And what did she mean by "they never stop"? But something told him the answers would come soon enough, and that when they did, his quiet life would never be the same again. The stranger inside the room felt smaller now. Ethan's little living room, which usually felt open and safe, was suddenly tight and full of tension. Lyra stood in the middle, her silver skin faintly glowing under the warm lamplight. It wasn't bright, but it was enough to make the shadows on the walls shift like they were alive. Ethan locked the door twice, checked the window latches, then turned to face her. "You want to tell me what's going on?" he asked. Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she moved slowly around the room, touching the walls as if she was testing them. Her fingers left a faint blue light that faded after a few seconds. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked, keeping his voice low. "Hiding us," she said simply. "Making mask." Her English was broken, but her meaning was clear. She was trying to hide them from whatever was outside. She finished tracing the last wall and stepped back. The glow around her hands disappeared. For a brief moment, she seemed calmer. Ethan noticed how tired she looked, her shoulders slumped, her breathing heavy. "You're hurt," he said, taking a step closer. "No, not hurt," she said quickly. "Just long running." She sat down on the edge of the couch, her posture still tense. Ethan stayed standing, arms crossed. "So Lyra, where exactly are you from?" Her silver eyes lifted to meet his. "Not here," she said. "Far. Another country?" Ethan asked, almost sarcastic. She tilted her head slightly. "Another star." He stared at her for a second. He thought she was joking, but her eyes, calm, serious, and almost sad, told him she wasn't. "You mean you're an alien?" he said slowly. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "I am. From Solara 7. Ethan had never heard of such a place, but the name rolled off her tongue like it was carved into her memory. Before he could ask more, a faint tremor passed through the floorboards. It was subtle, but both of them felt it. Lyra's head turned toward the window instantly. "They search," she whispered. "Always search." Ethan moved toward the curtain, but she stopped him. With a quick, almost panicked gesture, "Do not look," she said sharply. "They sense." Her tone made him freeze. It wasn't just fear, it was warning. They waited in silence. Outside, the faint hum from earlier returned, moving slowly through the streets like a predator sniffing for prey. Lyra sat perfectly still, her breathing controlled. Ethan found himself matching her stillness without thinking. The hum passed by, then faded again into the distance. When the quiet returned, Ethan finally spoke. "Why here? Why my house?" Lyra's gaze shifted to him, and for the first time, she seemed unsure of what to say. "You have signal," she said finally. "Signal?" Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" "In my people's ways, some humans are rare," she explained slowly. "They have courage." Without knowing danger, Ethan didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or a threat. "You mean you can read my mind?" She shook her head. "Not read. Feel." Ethan rubbed his temples. "This is insane," he muttered. Lyra leaned forward, her voice low. "If I stay outside, I die." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. For some reason, Ethan knew she wasn't exaggerating. He had seen fear before. This was different. This was the kind of fear that came from being hunted for a long time. He sat across from her, leaning on his knees. "What do they want from you?" Lyra looked down at her hands. From her right palm, a soft blue light began to swirl. It formed into a small glowing sphere, no bigger than a marble. The light seemed alive, pulsing gently. "They want this," she said. "It is life seed." Ethan stared at it, mesmerized. "What is it?" he asked. She hesitated. "It can make worlds." Before he could process her words, the lights in the room flickered. The hum outside returned, louder this time. Lyra quickly closed her hand, hiding the sphere. Her eyes locked onto Ethan's. "If they find me here, they take you too." Ethan swallowed hard. The reality was sinking in. He was part of this now, whether he liked it or not. The hum grew sharper, almost like it was directly above them. Ethan's walls seemed to vibrate, a red beam of light. Briefly swept past the window, Lyra moved without thinking, pressing herself against the floor. "Down," she whispered. Ethan ducked too, heart pounding. The beam lingered for a few seconds, then moved on. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise. Lyra sat up slowly, her eyes still on the window. "They will come again," she said. Quietly, "They always come again." Ethan didn't doubt her anymore. He didn't understand everything yet, but one thing was clear. Letting her in had just changed his life forever. A dangerous secret. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in the chair across from Lyra, the lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Every time the wind moved outside, he thought it was the sound of the hunters returning. Lyra didn't sleep either. Her silver eyes stayed half open, as if even closing them could be dangerous. After hours of silence, Ethan spoke. "You said they want something you have." Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled the small glowing sphere from her palm again. It floated an inch above her hand, spinning slowly. The light inside it wasn't steady. It swirled like a miniature storm. "This is called the life seed," she said softly. Her voice had a strange weight now. "My people. We make them to heal dead worlds." Ethan stared at it. "You mean it can bring life back to a planet?" "Yes," she said. "One seed can change a desert to forest. It can clean oceans. It can wake air that is dead." Ethan felt a strange chill. It wasn't fear this time. It was the realization of how powerful this little thing was. "Then why are they hunting you?" "Why? Wouldn't they use it for good?" he asked. Lyra's expression darkened. "They are the Zorath," she said. "They take life, but they do not give it. They want to use the seed to make war worlds." The words sank in slowly. Ethan imagined entire planets built for nothing but destruction. He didn't know much about space politics, but he knew enough to understand one thing. If something like that fell into the wrong hands, it wouldn't just be aliens who suffered. "They'll come to Earth, won't they?" he asked quietly. Lyra nodded. "They do not care for borders or species." A faint vibration shook the floor again. Ethan looked toward the window, but Lyra didn't move. "That is not them," she said. "That is the warning." "The warning?" Ethan repeated. She reached into a small pouch on her belt and pulled out a thin, metallic disc. It unfolded into a small hovering device, glowing faintly green. "They are close, but not here yet," she explained. "This tells me how far." Ethan rubbed his face. "You have all this alien tech and you still came to my door? You couldn't just fly away?" Lyra looked at him with an almost sad smile. "My ship? Gone. They shot it in the sky before I landed." Ethan pictured her falling through the atmosphere, alone and hunted. It made his stomach twist. Lyra placed the life seed back inside her palm, where it seemed to sink beneath the skin until it vanished. "You hid it in your body," Ethan said in disbelief. "It is the only place they cannot scan." "For long," she replied. Her eyes flicked toward the window again. "But soon. Even that will not matter." Outside, the wind changed. The air carried a faint metallic smell now. Ethan had never noticed it before. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra's voice dropped low. "They are burning the air," she said. "It helps." "Then track living things." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Then we can't stay here," Lyra nodded. "I must go before they lock this place." Ethan frowned. "Lock it? You mean like a blockade?" Her gaze was sharp now. "No. Like a cage, they bend the space around a place so nothing can leave." That was the moment Ethan realized how deep he was in. This wasn't just about hiding someone in his house. This was about keeping something inhuman and dangerously valuable from a force that could reshape reality itself. Lyra stood, her movements quick and precise now. We have maybe 1 Earth hour, she said. Her hands moved over her wrist device, showing him a hologram of the surrounding area. Red dots flickered on the edges of a glowing map, slowly moving inward. They are walking the circle, she said. When it closes, we are gone. Ethan didn't know what she meant by gone, and part of him didn't want to know. But one thing was clear: if they stayed, they wouldn't see the sunrise asterisk. The first attack, the first sign of danger wasn't the sound. It was the light, a thin red line, no thicker than a pencil, slid silently across Ethan's living room wall. It moved slowly, like a snake. Lyra's eyes locked on it instantly. They are here, she said, her voice almost a whisper. Before and Ethan could react, the front door shuddered, not from a knock, from something sharp, something burning through the wood. A glowing orange hole began to form, smoke curling upward. They cut through, Lyra said, grabbing Ethan's arm. We run now. Ethan's heart pounded as they rushed toward the back of the house, but the air behind them shimmered, and suddenly, a black metallic drone dropped from the ceiling as if it had been hiding there all along. It was the size of a large dog, with 6 spider-like legs that clinked against the floor. Its face was a single glass-like panel glowing red. Ethan didn't even have time to think. The thing lunged forward with a high-pitched screech. Lyra moved first, her wrist device snapped open, and a bright blue shield appeared between them and the drone. The creature slammed into it, sparks flying, but the shield flickered. It wouldn't last long. Go, she shouted, pushing him toward the back door. They burst outside into the cold night air. The trees loomed tall and dark, their branches swaying in the wind. Ethan barely had time to process the open space before another drone dropped from above. Landing in the grass with a heavy thud, it unfolded 2 long arms ending in sharp, glowing claws. Ethan grabbed the only weapon he had, an old hunting rifle leaning by the porch. He fired once, the shot echoing in the night. The bullet hit the drone's chest, but instead of breaking, it just made the thing stumble for half a second. That did nothing, Ethan muttered. Lyra pulled a small, silver disc from her belt and hurled it toward the drone. The moment it hit, it exploded in a silent flash of white light. When Ethan blinked the brightness away, the drone was nothing but smoke and twisted metal. They will send more, Lyra warned. She grabbed his hand, and they sprinted into the forest. Branches slapped against Ethan's arms as they ran. Behind them, the hum of engines grew louder, but it was different. Now, it wasn't just one sound, it was many, surrounding them from all sides. They're circling us. Ethan gasped. Yes, Lyra said, her voice tight. They want us alive. The idea didn't make him feel any better. A beam of red light swept across the trees ahead of them. Lyra yanked Ethan down into the dirt just before it passed. Overhead, the beam wasn't like a flashlight where it touched. The bark of trees blackened instantly, the leaves curling into ash. Ethan swallowed hard. What happens if that hits us? Lyra didn't answer, which was answer enough. They crawled forward under the cover of fallen branches. Ethan's pulse was so loud in his ears he almost didn't notice when Lyra stopped. She held up her wrist device, and a small map appeared. In the air, a green circle pulsed far to the east. What's that? Ethan asked. Safe point, she said. Old station. Before your people. They didn't have time to think about what that meant. The hum was closing in fast. From the darkness behind them, 3 more drones emerged, their eyes glowing red. Lyra pressed a button on her wrist device, and a transparent wave of light rolled out from her. For a second, everything went silent. Then the forest came alive, but not in a good way. The wave seemed to awaken the ground itself. Roots shot up from the soil, twisting around the legs of the drones, pulling them down. Ethan stared in shock. You can control plants? Lyra shook her head. No, just make them angry. The drones shredded the roots in seconds, but that was all the time they needed. Lyra grabbed Ethan again, and they broke into a sprint toward the east. Somewhere in the distance he could see a faint blue light pulsing in the trees, but between them and that light, the hunters were moving to block the way. Trust and betrayal, they reached the edge of a rocky slope. Below them, the forest thinned, revealing a shallow valley bathed in pale moonlight. The faint blue pulse of the safe point still glowed far ahead, but the distance looked longer. Now Ethan's breath came in sharp gasps, his legs burning. Lyra didn't seem as tired, but her eyes kept scanning the shadows like she expected them to move. They ducked into the hollow of a fallen tree, crouching low. For the first time since they fled the house, there was no sound of drones, only the wind in the branches and the quiet drip of water from the leaves. Ethan tried to calm his breathing, but the silence made him uneasy. "Why'd they stop chasing us?" he whispered. Lyra's answer came quick, too quick. "They reset the circle." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "You seem to know a lot about how they work." Lyra didn't meet his gaze. "I know enough," she said. Her tone was flat, but something about it felt off. He leaned back against the damp wood. "Lyra, you're not telling me everything, are you?" Her silver eyes flicked to his face for just a second before looking away. "I tell what matters," she replied. "That's not the same as the truth," Ethan said, his voice low. The way her shoulders stiffened told him he'd struck something. "You think I lie?" she asked. "I think," Ethan said carefully, "people or aliens don't run across the galaxy with a miracle in their hand unless they've done something to make enemies. So tell me, did you steal that thing?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her belt pouch and pulled out a small metal cube. She placed it on the dirt between them. The cube unfolded silently into a floating image, a field of flowers under a purple sky. Ethan stared. It was beautiful, but the scene flickered, breaking apart like old film. "This was my home," Lyra said, her voice almost breaking. "Now it is ash. The Zoroth came. They took our seeds. I kept one. The last." Her hand closed, the image disappearing into darkness again. Ethan wanted to believe her. Her voice was full of pain. But something still didn't sit right. The way she'd avoided eye contact. The way she seemed to know exactly when the hunters would move. And the fact that she hadn't told him why she'd chosen him specifically. The sound of a snapping twig made them both freeze. Ethan raised the rifle. Lyra pulled a small blade from her boot, one he hadn't seen before. They stayed still, waiting. Then a man stepped into the moonlight from the trees ahead. Not a Zoroth, a human. He wore dark body armor and carried a sleek rifle, unlike anything he'd seen on Earth. A black visor hid his face. When he spoke, his voice was cold. "Lyra of Solara 7, he said. "You are under retrieval order. Come quietly, and your human lives." Ethan's grip tightened on the rifle. "You're working with them?" he asked the man. The figure tilted his head. "They pay well," was all he said. Ethan looked at Lyra. She didn't look surprised. That was when he realized she had known humans were involved all along. She just hadn't told him. The choice. The air between them was tense. Ethan kept his rifle aimed at the armored man. Lyra stood just behind him, her blade in hand, but she didn't move forward. The stranger's visor reflected the moonlight, hiding his eyes. "You give her to me," the man said, "and you walk away alive." His voice was calm, almost casual. It was the kind of tone used by people who had done this many times before. "She's not going with you," Ethan said, though his voice wasn't as steady as he wanted it to be. Lyra's silver eyes stayed on the man, but she spoke quietly to Ethan. "If he takes me, they take the seed." The armored man chuckled. "Let's not play games, Lyra. You've told him your sob story by now, haven't you?" Ethan's stomach tightened. "What's he talking about?" he asked her. Lyra didn't answer. Her silence felt heavier than the forest around them. The man took a slow step forward. "She didn't tell you the part where her people built those war worlds first, did she?" Ethan's grip tightened on his rifle. "That's a lie," Lyra said sharply. "Is it?" The man replied, "Or did you just forget to mention that the Zoroth learned from the best?" Ethan looked between them, two different stories, both sounding like they could be true. He thought of the image Lyra had shown him of her world. It had looked peaceful. But could that have been a carefully chosen memory? The man lowered his rifle slightly. "Look, human," he said. "I don't care who's right or wrong. I'm paid to bring her in. You give her up, you live. You help her, you die." Ethan's mind spun. If he gave her to the man, maybe the hunters would leave. Maybe the whole nightmare would end. But if Lyra was telling the truth, he'd be giving the most powerful life-giving object in existence to people who would twist it into a weapon. Lyra stepped closer, her voice urgent now. "If you trust me, we can stop them," she said. "If you don't, your world will burn like mine." The man raised his rifle again. "You have 10 seconds, he said, "and then I stop asking." Ethan felt the weight of the choice pressing on him. This wasn't just about whether to believe her or not. It was about whether he could risk the entire planet for someone he had met only hours ago. He glanced at the trees. The faint hum was back. The hunters were near. If he fought the man now, the noise would bring the drone straight to them. If he surrendered Lyra, the man would take her, and the hunters might still come. There was no safe option, only different kinds of danger. Ethan's finger hovered near the trigger. Lyra's eyes didn't leave his. The man's visor stayed blank and cold. He took a breath and made his choice. The final stand. Ethan's breath came slow and heavy. The hunter drone's hum grew louder in the distance. The armored man still aimed his weapon. Lyra stood tense, the silver glow of her skin catching every flicker of moonlight. "I'm done talking," the man said. But before he could fire, Ethan made his move. He spun and shoved Lyra down into the dirt, then swung his rifle toward the man and pulled the trigger. The shot cracked through the night. The man stumbled back, armor sparking where the bullet struck. It wasn't enough to drop him, but it bought them seconds. Seconds they didn't have to waste. "Run!" Ethan shouted. Lyra scrambled to her feet, tapping her wrist device. A burst of blue light spread from her in a wave, washing over the trees. The ground shook, roots and branches twisted upward, forming a wall of living wood between them, and the hum of the drones was no longer distant. 3 of them burst into the clearing from above. Their red scanning lights cut through the dark like knives. Ethan and Lyra sprinted toward the faint blue glow of the safe point. Behind them, the wall of roots exploded under the man's weapon fire. The drones gave chase. One fired a red beam that scorched the ground inches from Ethan's legs. Another swooped low, claws extended. Ethan turned mid-run and fired again, the recoil jarring his shoulder. The bullet glanced off the drone's head, enough to send it spinning into a tree. Almost there, Lyra shouted. The blue glow ahead was brighter now. It wasn't just a light, it was a structure, tall and angular, half buried in the earth. It pulsed with the same strange energy as the life seed. Lyra reached into her palm and pulled the glowing sphere free. The light grew so bright Ethan had to squint. The last drone dove toward them. Lyra didn't run. She turned, holding the seed high. The sphere released a wave of energy that rippled out like water when it hit the drone. The machine simply stopped. Its lights went out, and it crashed lifeless into the dirt. But the wave didn't stop at the drone. It rolled through the forest where it passed. The ground bloomed. Flowers, grass, and vines erupted from the soil. The air smelled clean, sharp, alive. The armored man staggered into view, his weapon raised, but the vines reached him first. They wrapped around his legs and arms, pulling him down. The man fought, but the roots were relentless. In moments, he was trapped, glaring up at them. Lyra placed the seed into a hollow in the ancient structure. The blue glow surged, and the hum of the hunters changed pitch. It wasn't angry now, it was fading. Ethan looked up to see the black shapes in the sky turning away. The Zorith were retreating. Lyra stepped back, breathing hard. "It will hide this world," she said softly. For a time, Ethan stared at her. "You could have just left," he said. "Why risk it?" She met his gaze. Because you chose to trust me. The forest around them was quiet now. The moon hung low, silver light spilling over new green leaves. Lyra touched Ethan's shoulder. "One day, I will return," she said, "and you will see the stars as I do." She walked toward the glowing structure. In the blink of an eye, it swallowed her in light. Then both she and the building were gone. Only the blooming valley remained. Ethan stood alone in the silence, but when he looked up at the sky, he didn't feel alone at all.